Why, hello again, folks. This is Buster coming to you today. We're having a little settee. We're trying to get a few stories in because we're going to be gone for about a week, and I just want to let y'all know we ain't going to let you down and get the stories in on Sunday. Well, the title of this story is Talkin. Well, old Big Mike Young, and I'm going to stop right there. It won't be long now. There'll be a story about old Big Mike Young now. He's in a lot of our stories. He just almost just he didn't grow up with the boys, but he's close to them as they could get. And it's about time we finally told you about the boy, but we'll be getting to that later on in the stories, but just want to let y'all know that. Y'all just stay tuned for that. Well, old Big Mike Young come by for a visit and says Buster to Jesse whilst they was a plavering singing for crawdads. Seems him and his friend John Burns went on a trip up in the mountains to visitate John's old Navy buddy, Jasper McGillicuddy. Well, Big Mike said he didn't think they would ever get there, but finally they dipped down into a holler about 17 miles out of town. Dang near went off of the mountain a time or two, but got there about time it went on to dark 30. Dang place had to pipe in sunshine, said Big Mike. Well, Jasper stuck his and hayed out the house when John hollered for him and said to come on in. Well, they did, and John introduced Big Mike there and offered up some good white mule and told him to set a spell. Well, John and Jasper got to telling about their times in the Navy, you know, because they was in the Navy together, and recounting the good times they had. Well, John asked Jasper how his wife was a-doing, and Jasper said, well, he reckons she was doing all right, but he ain't seen her in quite a spell. Oh, man, we got some characters in our stories. Well, how long has it been, asked John. Well, Jasper said now on 18 years. I reckon I told her I was going to go live in the mountains and asked her if she wanted to go, but she said no, so I just up and left on out. Oh, what a character. Ain't seen hide nor hair of her, nor spoke nary word to her since. I reckon we is still married up, far as I know. Oh, Big Mike told them both it was might chilly and it might come a snow, and asked Jasper if he'd had worried them about it snowing down there where he was. No, said Jasper, if it gets too deep, I'll just crawl out the second story window like I done last winter. Oh, boy. Well, John asked Jasper what all he was a-doing with his time now, and Jasper told him he was a-panning a mite of gold and made a few dollars on the side ever so often. Enough to keep in his claim, he said. Well, Jasper told Big Mike if he wouldn't mind fetching a log or two and throwing them on the fire. Well, Big Mike told him he'd be glad to stoke the fire a bit. Well, Jasper told him that he cuts firewood too for extra money, but some feller had been stealing it down at the general store. What they do is sell it for him and save up the money for him when he gets to town. He gives it to him. Well, Jasper said he ciphered on the way to catch the peckerwood that had been stealing that there firewood of his, and told the feller at the general store not to sell a rick he set to the side. Jasper said he done got a confession of who done the stealing. You see, Jasper bored a hole in one of the sticks of firewood and filled it with gunpowder, and then he plugged it up. When Jasper went back to town, they said the wood stove blew up plumb through the back wall of the barber shop. 'Twarn't no more wood come missing ever again, they said. Like Jasper said, he got the confession. Well, Jasper fed him a bit of moose stew and hardtack and another taste of that white mule, and then John and Big Mike had to leave on out. Big Mike said he was glad to meet Jasper, and John said it was good seeing Jasper again after so long a dry spell, but would come again soon. Well, Jasper bid him goodbye, and Big Mike and John left on out and got back in around about 10 p.m. that night. Took a while because of them switchbacks, you know. There was a little gal and a boy up from Yankee Land way was a fishing in old man Mason's place across from where Buster and Jesse was a-singing. They was some of the Mason's kin that was a-visiting them for a spell. The young'uns hollered over and wanted to know just what Buster and Jesse was a-doing. Well, Jesse hollered back that they was singing for crawdads. Well, what is singing, they asked. The little gal wanted to know. Well, Jesse went to telling them all kind of information. Well, like I say, folks, when you get on that website or that email and send it to me, I send you all these pictures and all the reading that goes with it and whatnot. because it tells about seining all over the world, how you seine for fish and crawdads and whatnot. So anyway, Jesse had to tell him about that because I can't give you the pictures and all that stuff that goes with it right now. So if you write me, you get it. But anyhow, Buster and Jesse told Big Mike that he wasn't going to be leaving anytime soon and was spending the night for sure. The folks would be right put out if and he didn't stay for a visit. Well, about that time, Hired and Walter come up and said they were sorry for being late meeting up with them. They were sure proud to see Big Mike was there, and Walter said he'd be hog-tied if he didn't stay the night now. Well, Big Mike said, I reckon I have to. All the boys got to gathering in the crawdads and picking up fish too that was trapped in the net. There was some crappie and catfish and a couple of buffalo and one old alligator gar. All of them would eat. Of course, some of them you got to know how to clean them. There was enough for all of the families when they all was said and done as well. On the way in from the farm, Buster had to stop and pick some turnip greens on an old home place and some muscadines too. Buster would stuff them buffalo in the gar with them muscadines and put them on the grill. That darn Walter would eat every bit of them if you didn't watch him. Hired would suck them hides of them crawdads so quick it'd make a feller's head swim. Buster'd put on the feed bag for sure, but Jesse just wanted a hamburger and a salad. No wonder he was so skinny. Didn't want no corn, you know, and nothing sappy neither. Well, Big Mike said he would stay the night, but had to get on back sometime the next day. Well, all the folks was plumb tickled pink to see Big Mike, I tell you. They wanted to hear all about his news and what all was going on and he was a-doing. Well, Si followed him around the country, he said, but he had to get on back to Idaho pretty soon. He'd been up to the Carolinas visiting his people in his own home place where he growed up. Grandma told him not to be a stranger or she'd have Grandpa Gus gun his and hay. Well, Big Mike said he would sure be back soon because Grandpa Gus wasn't nobody to be trifled with. All of them laughed at that for sure. Well, supper turned out to be a grand old affair and they even had a hoedown in the barn. Whilst there, Big Mike Young told the story of Big and Bewley the farrier after he seed the black of Mr. Ollinger's. Big Mike said he had one too. They was both walkers, you know, Tennessee walkers. Well, Big Mike said he had old Big and Bewley shoeing his horse and was the best dadgum there was, in his opinion, and that was a good one. Whilst Big and Bewley was working on Big Mike's walker, Big and Bewley asked Big Mike what the horse's name was. Well, Big Mike said it was Ebony. Well, lo and behold, Big and Bewley dropped everything and jumped up and declared that he had 3 other customers and their horses was all named Ebony too. Well, I didn't know if he's kin to Brennan or not with that IQ 35, but you know how that boy was. Well, you got to know Big and Bewley had a permanent stain down the side of his mouth from his chawing tobacco and was one syllable kind of feller. Guess what he says to Big Mike? They's all black. Yeah, I guess Ebony is black, isn't it? The next day, all the boys sitting around Soup's pool hall just to pass the time. Buster and Walter was shooting some snooker whilst Hired and Jesse was visiting with some of the old-timers that was regulars. Well, in come Honyaker Jones. He was Furknuckle and Carbuckle's very own first cousin, but was near about 19 months older than them. He was madder'n a wet hen, I tell you, and commenced to walk up to Buster and told him he needed to palaver with him and the boys. Well, Buster put down his and cue, gathered all the boys together, and then asked Honyaker what was all so fired important. I got a problem, says Honyaker. My gal is stepping out on me, and I figured since Jesse got them pheromones, I could get some from him. Well, it was all the boys could do not to laugh, although Honyaker was real serious-like, you know. Honyaker had 3 sets of teeth and was a mite whomper-jawed, as well as a little lopsided where the mule kicked him when he was snaking logs in the bottoms with his pap. Dang Cottonmouth about got him, and that mule was sure enough fractious when he kicked him. Well, Honyaker lived out past the lake, and the gal lived about a quarter-mile from him. Her name was Myrtle Carson. She had took a shine to Tolliver Sims, it seems, over at Ferdy when he delivered ice and dry goods to her folks. Well, Honyaker had him a histy fit over that, I tell you. He had known Myrtle since they was knee-high to a grasshopper, and he thought she was the cat's meow and finer than frog hair too. He was a-planning on marrying up with Myrtle, but was wall-eyed as a goat when he seen her with old Tolliver over at the bingo game at the church. And Jesse says to Honyocker, "I got a plan, but you got to stick to it. You gonna do it now?" Well, Honyocker said that was sure enough would, if Myrtle would quit seeing Tolliver Sims. Well, Honyocker said if and she didn't, he was going to whoop old Tolliver like a yard dog 40 ways from Sunday and Jap slap him to boot. Lord have mercy. Now, ain't no need of that, said now Buster. Twixt Jesse and us boys, Williams is going to help you. Now, the boys knowed old Tolliver all right. Thought he was a real ladies' man. They knowed he was just sporting Myrtle cause to having his way with her, and she sure enough wasn't that kind of gal. Fact is, if her pa knowed about Tolliver, he wouldn't see the light of day come tomorrow. Well, Jesse said to Honyocker, "Now you gotta spruce up a mite and get some flowers and candy and write her a love note, a love letter." "Well, I ain't never done such before," said Honyocker, "and don't really know how to go about it." "Well, I'll get the flowers and candy," said Walter, and Hired piped up and said he would write a love letter for him with Buster's help. Well, Jesse said he would take Honyocker over to the tonsorial parlor for a haircut and a shave and give him some of them pheromones and some aftershave too. Now, you got to put up your Sunday go-to-meeting clothes on and get on down with it to dress up a mite, said Hired. And then take her to the picture show too, says Walter. Well, I ain't got but about 6 bits saved up, and that don't seem like it'll be enough for all that, said Honyocker. Well, Buster flipped Honyocker a double eagle and told him it was their treat. Well, after all the doings to get ready, Honyocker lit out of there like a scalded dog to see Myrtle. All the boys left on out too. They knowed all about old Tolliver and decided to have a little talk with the boy. Well, they caught up with Tolliver down by Spradlin's dairy bar making deliveries as he was leaving out, and got him and took him behind the lumber shed. Now, Tolliver was a dandy, but a big old boy too. He reckoned he could take any man, but he thought wrong when it come to Buster. Well, Buster told Tolliver his spoon days with Myrtle was over. Tolliver said they wasn't going to tell him what he could or couldn't do. Well, we know you are. How you are, said Walter. You tried them shenanigans with my sisters, and you know how that turned out. Tolliver said, what y'all gonna do? All of you gonna gang up on me? Don't take all of us, Buster. Just me. What Buster told him. Well, then the fight was on. Well, Tolliver took a swing before the words was even out of Buster's mouth. Tolliver whacked Buster a good one on the jaw, and Buster never even flinched. Is that all you got? He said. Reckon you took your best shot, so now it's my turn. Well, Buster thumped old Tolliver's head but good, and then picked him up with one hand and with his and legs just a kicking. Well, Buster went to put a haymaker on Tolliver when he hollered calf rope. Hired said they knowed there was one of the gentry boys that delivered over to the Carson place, so he'd better leave well enough alone. Well, Buster asked him if and he agreed. He said he would, and then said she ain't worth it nohow. Woo, that's when Buster waylaid old Tolliver right out then and there. There was a catch barrel for rainwater nearby, and Buster picked up Tolliver and stuck his and hay in it, and he come up a blubbering. Well, Buster told him to never say a thing like that again, or he'd get it even worse. But Tolliver took to running and didn't look back. Walter drove the team and wagon back to the store and told him he didn't rightly know where Tolliver went, but figured they would need their team for their deliveries. Well, as was told, Tolliver left on out the county, and ain't nobody seen hide to hair him since. Well, Honyocker took Myrtle to the picture show and to eat at Fisher's Cafe and give her them flowers and candy along with the love letter, and he told Myrtle he loved her dearly. Well, Lulu and the gal said they'd talk to Myrtle, and she said she got to get old Honyocker's attention somehow and knowed all about old Tolliver. Well, I reckon that done it, she said. Honyocker popped a question and asked her pa for her hand. They was gonna have a June wedding. So goes life in the country, folks. Y'all have a blessed day now.